Podcasting is more than just talking. It's listening. BSing with Bob Schmidt.
The BS with Bob Schmidt podcast featuring entrepreneurs, business people, and marketers. This week, a whole new... I'm pretty excited about this whole interview today because I'm talking this week with Amanda McDonough. It's the first time that I've ever interviewed, as far as I know, somebody who's deaf. And to me, it's pretty cool because we actually figured out how to, or at least she knew how to do this already, but I had to figure out how to have video at the same time that I'm recording the audio. So, Amanda, welcome to the program. I appreciate you being on with me. We're talking about your book, How I Lost My Hearing and Found My Voice. And to me, that is amazing. I had the chance to meet you when I was at the Publicity Summit back in October. And when you came up and started talking to me, and then you said you were deaf, I was shocked at the fact that here I'm having conversation with a deaf person that's reading my lips. That's a skill in itself.
Yeah. Lip reading, definitely not the easiest thing to do, but most people actually assume that I can't talk when they hear I'm deaf. So they're like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to communicate with you. But it totally works thanks to today's technology. So all good. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Well, I think what a lot of people will notice right off the bat is that your voice is not what you expect from a deaf person, because a lot of times when you hear a deaf person speak, it's muted and kind of it's missing a lot of the big tones, whereas you've got the inflection that a lot of people probably are missing as a deaf person.
Yeah, well, I have the blessing of actually being able to hear. I was born hearing, and I started losing my hearing when I was about 4 years old. And as I got older, my hearing gradually decreased. And I was so ashamed of what was happening to me and being different that I hid it from the world for 18 years until I was about to become a senior in college. And I woke up one day with 100% of the hearing I had left gone. I was mute because in circumstances I couldn't hear, I couldn't speak, I didn't know sign language, and I didn't know how to lip read. So the only way to communicate with the world outside of my own body was through writing. And I had to, because I decided I wanted to finish my college degrees, I decided to teach myself to speak again. I taught myself to lip read, and I finished my 2 degrees in 4 years. But teaching myself to speak again was definitely one of the harder things I've ever done in my life.
So, Amanda, why did you hide your disability from the world?
At the time, and I mean, it's not that I'm like ancient, but back in the 90s, hearing loss was not something anyone talked about. It was not in the media. There was no role models for me to look up to. This whole stereotype of what a disability was something to be pitied and looked down upon. And people with disabilities weren't expected to get an education or to be successful or hold down a job. I didn't want that to be my future. And so I denied what was happening to me because I was afraid of the future society was telling me I would have if I admitted what was happening to me.
So seeing the way that your life has gone from then to now, do you wish that you would have had the opportunity, or do you wish that you would have taken the chance on the world prior to your senior year in college?
You know, that's a good question. I like to kind of live life with no regrets. I'm proud of who I am now, and I think all the decisions I made, even though they weren't the easiest decisions, I definitely denied myself the opportunity to actually figure out who I am as a person, what I really like, what I don't like. I forced myself as a child to fit into this image of what I thought people expected me to be. Happy-go-lucky, perfect grades, and all the perfect interests, social butterfly. I didn't really give myself the opportunity to figure out, what I actually like and who I actually am. And in that sense, it would have been nice to kind of go back and be like, hey, explore a little, figure out who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And learning sign language would have been nice as a kid. But I kind of have no regrets, really, at this point in my life, because I now have the opportunity, because I am fluent in both English and sign language, to make a difference and help bridge that gap.
Was it hard to learn sign language as an adult?
Oh, yes. I actually ended up learning sign language. I started working on a TV show And backstage, behind the scenes, in between takes, my friends who are deaf would teach me sign language, teach me words and how to sign my alphabet and things like that. So I was lucky to have very patient teachers every single day while working. But it was not easy to get a second language to stick in an adult brain.
Now, is it hard to not talk with your hands while you're talking to somebody with hearing?
Oh, absolutely. And it also, my family is Italian. My mom's side of the family.
So there's a lot of hand movements.
Exactly. So they can't talk without their hands either. So I have the added problem of I'm Italian American heritage, plus I'm deaf and I use sign language to speak. So my hands just always want to move and do something.
Now, the skills that you had as a person that can read lips, have you used that to your advantage at all?
Actually, when I first realized how well I could read lips, they tested me when I was getting my hearing tested. They're like, wait a second, how is it possible you can hear nothing, but you understand everything I'm saying? I'm like, I'm watching your lips and your body language. So they decided to test me in lip reading, and I scored 98% on the test. And they're like, you realize the average person can only lip read at a 33% accuracy, right? So I was like, I should work for the FBI. I'm like a college senior. So here I am, and I'm emailing people and like going online trying to figure out how can I become a lip reader for the FBI. And it turns out that apparently you have to become an FBI agent first. So I'm like, awesome, I'm going to become an FBI agent. I'm going to be like the most badass deaf person ever. And I go to fill online to see what the requirements were. And apparently, in order to become an FBI agent, you have to pass a hearing test. So I was like, okay, next dream. Let's there's no way I'm passing that hearing test.
Well, maybe you could pass it if you're reading their lips.
And that would be cheating, and they'd probably get me on the whole, what's it called? The thing where they tie you up and they tell whether or not you're telling the truth.
Oh, the lie detector test?
Yes, then they totally get me on the lie detector test. Did you lie on your last 4 tests? Yep, absolutely. What do you mean? Huh?
Well, all you got to do is just not watch them when they ask that question, and then ask the answer the question that you think that you want to hear.
Trick the lie detector test. That would definitely make me the best FBI agent.
Ways around the test. So what made you decide to write a book?
Actually, I didn't want to write one at first. I was at the National Publicity Summit with my mom, who wrote a book about credit. It's called How to Make Your Credit Score Soar. And we were promoting her book in New York City, and we ran into these 2 guys, and the Frischman brothers. And my mom walked up to them, and she's like, you know what? I was like, you already have a book. Why are you talking to these publishers? And she starts pitching my life story as a book written by me. And I'm like, oh, no, you don't. So I jump in and finish the pitch for her. And they were so amazed that I could even talk. They were like, you have to write this book. You have to write this book. And this was like probably the 7th or 8th time a person had told me, your life story needs to be a book. And I still for a year dragged my feet. Like, I'm not old enough to write a memoir. I really just started my life. I'm only 28 now. I started writing the book when I was like 25, 26. I'm like, who wants to listen to a 25-year-old, like, just complain about their life in a book? That seems ridiculous. And I started meeting more deaf people, and I started interacting with people of various disabilities and realizing that we represent 20% of the population. 20% of the American population is losing their hearing or going through hearing loss.
I am. I have hearing aids, but I refuse to wear them because I don't like them.
Yeah, and you're not alone. I did for probably 5-6 years until I absolutely needed them. But yeah, it affects everyone, and no one, whether it's you or your grandparent or your parent or a friend or a family member or a service member, so many that are going through hearing loss, and they're afraid to talk about it, afraid it's going to make them come off as weak. And so I realized, you know what? Someone has to share their story and bite the bullet and show people you can have a successful, happy life with hearing loss. You can still achieve your dreams, be an entrepreneur. I act in television shows and basically, and I do inspirational speaking. Whoever would have thought the deaf girl would get a job speaking to people?
Right. Now, do you do your own signing when you're doing your speeches?
Oh, I speak English and I sign.
You're getting they're getting like twice the speech for one price. You need to raise your prices.
Are? Absolutely. You get two languages simultaneously communicated. I mean, it's actually kind of funny because my brother, he's a rocket scientist. No joke. I am the least accomplished person in my family. And my rocket scientist brother will kind of just stare at me sometimes. And one day, I think it was Thanksgiving, he looked at me and I'm talking and signing because I'm trying to get my family to learn signing, which I'm trying to get them to visually see the signs and kind of put the words English words with the signs. And I'm lip reading them and signing and speaking. And he looks at me and he goes, "Stop, just stop. Everyone stop for a second." He goes, "Amanda?" I goes, "Yes, Andrew." And he goes, "So right now you're reading my lips." And I was like, "Yes." And he's like, "So that's basically a language, lip reading." And I was like, "Yes." He goes, "And you're signing?" And I was like, "Yes." "And you're speaking English?" And I was like, "Yes." So he's like, "So you're basically communicating in 3 different languages at exactly the same time?" I was like, "Yes, little brother." And he goes, "I'm a rocket scientist, and I find that impressive."
That's really cool. So, we could go a billion different ways on this interview, but I want to focus on you mentioned entrepreneur. So, are you an entrepreneur as well then?
Yes.
How so?
I started my own speaking business, my own company that all revolves around Ready to Be Heard. My book. We do a lot of work, not just with the speaking engagements, but we help promote people with disabilities doing things that are normal and natural for us. Script writing by diverse groups of people. We help support and encourage and contribute to new scripts from people with disabilities, new books from people with disabilities, trying to get all that diversity out into mainstream culture. Because we're a part of the culture. We may be a subculture, but it's time for us to be heard, which is basically what Ready to Be Heard is about to begin with. So I basically started my own company, working and collaborating with different organizations and writers, creators, advocators, anything to bring people with disabilities and minority groups to the forefront and get us in front of mainstream culture.
When you speak, you're very engaging, and I wonder if a lot of that has to do with, because I know that I have to look at my camera in order to talk. Well, I know that I can talk, but in order for you to hear me, I need to look at the camera for us to have communication. But I just watching you is very engaging. I could picture you up there doing a speech in front of, thousands of people. Was it hard for you to take that first step, to do that, to get up there, to share your story, to start working toward the breaking down the barriers to help out other people?
Actually, I stumbled onto it. I never thought of becoming a speaker or an author. It all was kind of something that I was pushed into, and I realized this is my calling. For speaking, actually, a funny story. My aunt owns a preschool, and I had never done inspirational speaking or anything like that before. And one day, she FaceTimed me, and she goes, "Amanda, I really need your help. I have these 2 new twin boys who just enrolled in my preschool, and their parents are deaf. So their first language is American Sign Language. And their English isn't very good because they haven't had the exposure to it yet, really, to perfect it, even though both these boys are hearing themselves. And so all the kids were bullying and teasing them for using their hands to communicate. And they came from worlds where my hands are used to communicate. Why is this weird?" So she's like, "Can you come down and just explain to the kids what deaf is?" And I was like, "Sure, why not? Okay." So I went down, I volunteered at her preschool, and I did this speech for the kids, and I realized, you know what, the best way to connect with these kids are everything from the age of 2 to 6th grade. So, like, it's a preschool and an after-school daycare and, like, everything. So I had to find a way to engage kids from 2 years old to 6th grade for an hour. And so I did it by signing the story Goldilocks and the Three Bears, teaching them how to sign Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, teaching them how to sign the names of their favorite superheroes, how to sign cat, dog, and slipping in little information about accepting people who are different or enjoying people's difference and learning from each other. And I had no idea how much of this was actually going to make it into their little heads and their little hearts. But I get a FaceTime call from my aunt a week later, and she goes, Amanda, those 2 little boys are now the most popular kids at this preschool. Everyone is constantly asking them, how do I sign this? How do I sign my name? How do I sign that? And because all the kids now were interested in their first language, they were now having all these encounters in English, and their English was soaring through the roof. So by having these kids with a different background at her school, the other kids were learning sign language, learning a second language, and these kids were learning really strong English and social skills. And so it actually benefited everyone. I realized, you know what, if 1 hour of my time can make that big of a difference in those kids' lives and everyday life and their excitement to go to school, what can I do with 1 hour of my time elsewhere? Mm-hmm. So that's how I actually started doing speaking and realizing, you know, this is something I kind of was meant to do.
That's really cool. Now, this is a weird question, but I'm going to ask it. So do you think that we that have hearing have a disability because we don't have the ability to see as you do?
I definitely think losing my hearing, becoming a deaf person, has given me a lot of perspective, empathy, and allowed me to experience the world in this way that's actually really beautiful, where most people my age are like staring at their phones when they're sitting down in a restaurant. I have to look at you to engage and to communicate and to read your body language. And because of that, I think I have the ability to connect with people on a more human level. And that skill that I feel like my generation is definitely losing or is definitely decreasing. Like, I walk up to strangers and go, hi, how are you today? Can I help you with that? And they're like, are you talking to me? We're in a waiting room.
A millennial that speaks?
This is so weird. And I was like, well, that looks heavy. Can I help you? Well, yeah, that'd be nice. But why are you talking to me? And we're just like, you know, it definitely has given me a different perspective and enjoyment of human interactions. It makes me appreciate them more because they are harder for me and there's something I have to work at and practice. So I appreciate every human I talk to. I appreciate every Starbucks barista. I appreciate every grocery store checkout clerk, every bag lady, every person at the gas station. And I really cherish every moment spent talking with a human being because I had a long period of time in my life where I was deaf and mute and I couldn't communicate with people. So I think we take communication for granted. Being able to listen to a podcast, I can't do that yet. I'm working on it. But I think so many people, we sit in the traffic and we turn on our favorite podcasts and we listen to them and we're like, oh yeah, this is just normal life. I'm really grumpy because I'm in traffic and life sucks and, you know, I had to pay extra to get a new tire last week. But really, how beautiful is it that we can share information and stories while sitting in our car or sitting in our computer? It's very human and something people take for granted a lot that I don't anymore.
Amanda, you're very inspirational. I just want to tell you that. So when we started this interview, you were plugging some things into your ears, and so do you have a cochlear implant? I know I said that wrong, but do you have the implant?
Yeah, I have a cochlear implant in one of my ears, and it helps me as far as knowing when people are talking. and gauging whether or not they're being kind of sarcastic or loud or soft. Because sometimes you can't get all of that from body language, especially sarcasm. My brother is insanely sarcastic, like dry sarcasm all the time.
That's
and
awesome,
just
though.
vocal inflections, no facial expressions. So it helps me a lot in communicating with him. Otherwise, I would probably think my brother is the biggest jerk on the planet. But yeah, so it helps me with vocal inflections, knowing when things are happening, like my dogs are barking, or sometimes when alarms are going on, things like that. But I still have to rely on lip reading to understand human speech.
Can you hear? So the voice, can you hear my voice, or you can just hear the hum of a vocal cord?
It's kind of like, okay, for example, if you said the cat is out of the bag, what my processor will pick up is, so I can tell basically how many words, how many syllables are in each word, and I can tell, like, if you're like, the cat's out of the bag, like, ha, 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 or like, the cat's out of the bag, like, darn, kind of thing. So that's really the information it gives me, and it's very valuable information that I guess people don't even think about. You do it so naturally when you're listening to people and processing those vocal inflections and all of that. But me, I have to break everything down like a puzzle. And so I lip read, and every single person moves their lips differently. So it's like a new language with every person I meet. So I'm lip reading you. You have a beard, which adds to a little more difficulty to the lip reading.
Theirs is better.
I have to add, he's holding his beard at the bottom.
See, at least you get the sarcasm when we're talking, because sometimes when I do these interviews, I don't know if they get my sarcasm, and it's weird to be able to be seen, honestly, when you're doing this rather than just doing them on the phone. So I want to ask, you mentioned earlier, too, about being an actress. So as an actress, is it hard to work with hearing people, or do people find it hard for them to work with you because you might not get a cue?
Actually, it's kind of funny when it comes to acting. I mean, there's a script, and so you know what's coming next, and it's my job to bring that scene to life and connect with people on a really emotional level, so that the audience can feel that emotion, can feel that anger or that pain or whatever it is that's happening in the scene. I have never had an issue communicating on a set. Actually, if anything, I communicate better on set than hearing people because sign language can still be used during takes. So while everyone else on the set, when they say quiet on set, rolling, and action, everyone else has to be completely silent, I can still continue communicating across the room with someone behind the camera using sign language. So even if it's not my scene, I can just keep going, keep signing, keep communicating things. So if anything, I communicate better and easier on set than anyone else.
Now, when you're having conversation with somebody, you probably can tell sooner than most people that, what are we, like the eye roll, you notice like the little things. And I bet you that helps you actually be a truth detector. I know we talked about the FBI earlier and the whole truth detecting thing, but I'll bet you that you are great at reading people.
And there's this little saying that you can't lie to a deafie. Because we're all basically human lie detectors. Our survival depends on us being able to read people's body language, to anticipate and understand and comprehend people quicker than somebody who depends on hearing would. So we really are. It's my favorite thing to do, and this is kind of a guilty pleasure that's really terrible of mine, is I like to take myself to dinner just by myself, go to a nice place, take myself to dinner, and I like watching other people's first dates. And I can lip read everything.
Right.
And I can read the body language, facial expressions of everyone, and it's just like every 3 seconds someone is lying. And I'm just internally just enjoying. Like, it's just like, come on, guys, tell the other person something true. just one thing true. Stop bending the truth. I mean, this is not the basis for a serious relationship. But now that I'm in a serious relationship, I don't get the entertaining dating life anymore that I used to have as a single lady. So now I enjoy watching other people suffer through it. But yeah, that's one of my guilty pleasures. My boyfriend thinks it's like the weirdest thing. He's like, it's such an invasion of privacy.
Is your boyfriend hearing or hearing impaired?
Yeah, he's hearing.
Okay.
Yeah. He's learning sign language right now for me, which I think is like the sweetest thing ever. He's definitely the first guy to ever do that, to actually put an effort in and start taking a class. And but yeah, he is hearing. He works at JPO, so he's also he keeps up with me intellectually, which has always been a challenge dating guys in LA. Do
you think of yourself as a disabled person?
No, not from they're not the same definition that the hearing community thinks of the word disabled as meaning. I do see myself as having a disadvantage in the fact that not because I'm deaf, but because of the way society views me as a deaf person. If it weren't for the fact that most newscasters and TV producers and casting agents think of the word deaf as meaning unable to communicate, unable to speak, unable. If it wasn't for all their views, I would have no problem being successful in this life. But because of the definition other people have forced upon me as a disabled, I'm doing like air quotes right now, disabled person, that's the real disability. It's other people's perception of me being different. It's definitely been a challenge getting on podcasts, radio interviews, television shows. The second the word deaf comes up, all of a sudden, all of my accomplishments are completely erased, and all anyone sees is their assumptions of who I am and how I communicate, which is one of the reasons the National Publicity Summit was so important to me, to stand in front of podcasters and producers and speak for myself and be like, hi, give me a chance. Because I have emailed you, I have tried calling you, I've tried having representatives reach out to you, and the second you hear or see the word deaf, your brain just shuts down as I'm not a possibility. But being there, I have 2 minutes of your time, and you are going to listen to me, damn it, and showing them what disability, what deaf means to me. That was the power. That was the breakthrough for me. But yeah, disability really is just how you define it. I don't feel like I am disadvantaged compared to other people my age, except by other people's perceptions of what I'm supposed to be and how I'm supposed to act.
All right, let's talk about your book. Be Ready to Be Heard, How I Lost My Hearing and Found My Voice. Tell me about your book in a couple of minutes here.
Well, the book is called Ready to Be Heard, as you said, and it's the story of my journey, how I lost my hearing and found who I am as a person, and found not only my voice as far as like the hearing definition of the voice and what you can hear right now on this podcast, but also found my identity, figured out what my perspective on this world is, figured out who I am, and found sign language, which has become really this huge asset to me and this new way of communicating for me. It also, at the very end of the book, has a section called the Hearing Loss Handbook, which I thought was really important to add in there for everyone who knows someone who's going through hearing loss or is going through hearing loss themselves. It has everything from tips and tricks on how to communicate at Thanksgiving dinner to how to do business with someone who has hearing loss, better ways to communicate, tips and tricks on how to go through your classes at school when you're when you're struggling with your hearing or when you're ringing in your ears. I mean, it affects everyone. So I thought it was important to share all the knowledge that I have accrued over the years through trial and error with everyone. So I wrote this book, and I hope that it inspires people, not just those going through hearing loss, but we all have challenges. Mine may have been hearing loss, but we all have something in our life that we feel is holding us back, or we feel limits us, or we're maybe struggling with emotionally or trying to get over. And my book isn't just about hearing loss. It's about overcoming all the obstacles that life has thrown at me. I mean, I had to deal with depression, abusive relationships, finishing school when I felt completely disadvantaged in the classroom, things like that, that I had to get over, hurdles. And so I hope that it helps other people learn from what I went through. Oh, this is possible. If Amanda can do it, I can do it. I'm not special.
Oh, Amanda, I honestly, you are very special, and you are very inspirational. I think that you are a superb person, and I appreciate our conversation. I do. How do people find out more about you, first of all? How do they find out about your book? How do they book you as a speaker? How can we where can we find your TV shows? How do we find you, Amanda?
Well, the best place to find me is at readytobeheard.com. And that has links to all of my social media. I also have a speaker site, AmandaMcDonoughSpeaker.com, and there's also an AmandaMcDonough.com. But I know my last name's hard to spell, so go for ReadyToBeHeard.com. It links you to everything. You can also find me on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at Ready to Be Heard, or at Amanda McDonough, and all of them linked together. So if you can remember that you're ready to be heard and I'm ready to be heard.
The BS with Bob Schmidt podcast is brought to you by Orange Computer. Find them online at orangecomputerlax.com. And by Tri-State Sound and Light. Find them online at tristatesound.com. Tell your story with microcasts by podcastforhire.com. The BS with Bob Schmidt podcast is a Podcast for Hire production.